Okay. This is a microphone check 1 2. Just seeing if we're live. Apologies for the late start, but I hope we're good and I hope we're live. Let me know. I can see from the chat that a lot of people are here, so that's fantastic to see everyone here. It's been a while, I have to say. It's been a while since we did a live stream before, so it's actually quite nice to have you all here. A very packed room from what I can see in terms of the chat. Just bear with me as I get a couple of things set up. I've been on for about an hour. I thought that was going to be long enough, but clearly I'm out of practice, having not gone live for a while. So yeah, just bear with me as I find my feet. I hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone's really good. And you can see the topic hopefully already on the screen that we're going to be tackling today. So there's this new reconstruction. We'll go through the article together, but there's a new reconstruction of Amenhotep III that's been released. And as usual, when they do these phony baloney agendaed BS with clearly no level of accuracy and no degree of acknowledgement to the actual ancient Egyptians themselves, they ignore when they do their reconstructions, they ignore all the realms of anthropology, they ignore all of the data, and they do their reconstructions in isolation just based on looking at a skull, which I've already explained on this channel is, that's the epitome of stupidity and guesswork. It's a field that doesn't exist without reference material. You need reference material in terms of the population that you're referencing. You need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of the skin tone range. You need to be aware of the local phenotypic traits that exist. You need to be aware of the family and ethnicity of the person. So as you can imagine, it's a bit of a joke, isn't it? I mean, you guys can see it. I really don't know where to start. Oh, Cicero Moraes, is that you? Are you actually, is that someone pretending to be him? Because I would love to get you on the live stream. I don't work with a facial approximation. I would absolutely love for you to come and justify some of the decisions you've made. So if that is you, if that's really Cicero Moraes, by the way, guys, that's the person who's actually responsible for this reconstruction. He's a Brazilian reconstruction artist. I am aware of you and aware of your work, and I would love to get you on this live stream. I would have to change a few things to get you to dial into the call. Are you willing to take that on, Cicero? Because I'd love to get you on this live stream if that's really you. Absolutely love to get you on this live stream, and I'd like to provide you with some anthropological data that I think will help you. Hi, how you doing? So I'll wait for you to respond. If you're happy to do that, we can get this set up. I would love to. I'll let you formulate your response. But anyway, what I was talking about was the fact that it's really important that we actually have a discussion about these things that we're done, and that when they're done. And actually, I think that it would be really good, to discuss with the person who's actually responsible for doing this. That would be absolutely great, because I have loads of evidence that I think supports the fact that I don't think, and this is me being as polite as possible if you're on the stream, because I definitely don't want to say anything kind of derogatory to you or to your work, but I will say I've got lots of evidence to suggest that this is very inaccurate. And I would like you to actually, as a reconstruction artist, honor the ancient Egyptians, honor the artwork, and honor the anthropology as well, because there's lots of anthropology that supports exactly what Amenhotep III would have looked like. And actually one of those things actually that I want to tackle in today's stream is some of the rumors about him being overweight, because this is something that I mentioned. You've disappeared there. I hope that you're I have loads of publications and studies about facial approximation with the police. That's great. I'm asking if you want to come on the live stream and discuss them with me, okay? Because I would like to discuss them with you, because I've seen your articles. Don't worry, I've done my homework. That's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, you're doing work here with ancient Egyptians, and you should be aware of phenotypic traits, if that really is you. Because I know this, I'm very aware of the fact this is YouTube, and this could be someone who's just pretending to be you at the moment. So that's probably more likely. But if you are who you are, I'm sure you wouldn't mind coming on and defending yourself live, and actually, you know, justifying some of the decisions that you've made. Because I'm going to go through your full process here. Well, not full process, but your full reconstruction here, and I'm going to be able to quite, you know, simplistically put forward why I think it's entirely inaccurate. But you're very, very welcome to come on here and defend yourself, because that would be a much better, much better. Will you only use sound or some images, references, etc.? If I get you on the call, Cicero, if I'm saying your name right, by the way, I'll have to use a different streaming software to the one I'm using at the moment. So I'll have to give everyone here a link to a new live stream, but it wouldn't take me long to set that up. And then you can come on. You don't have to put your webcam on. We can just have a vocal discussion, and I'll be very, very happy to do that live with you. So let me know if you're up for that. You have to have a microphone, obviously, but that's all you need. So if you've got a phone or anything that you can use the software to dial in, I'll send you a StreamYard link and we'll do it that way. Yeah. So either which way, really good to have you. We are going to be critiquing your work, and it might not be the most complimentary thing that you've ever heard someone do with your work, but there are reasons why this, you know, you can tell from my thumbnail that I'm not taking this reconstruction very seriously, and I don't think there's any justification for any of the choices made in terms of the way this person looks. So we're going to get into that. Let me know if you're up for that. Worst comes to worst, tell you what, I think it's going to be maybe too short notice for us to do this, but I really do obviously respect you coming on the live stream. I've done this before, to be honest with you. I've gone on someone else's live stream before to defend myself, so I'm always going to respect someone who has the balls to do that. Let's exchange data, let's exchange information with one another. Let me know how you want to do that, and then I'll get you on a live stream and we'll have a live discussion about this, because it's one thing me telling my audience what I think about your reconstruction and what I think about your processes, but it's another thing you saying exactly what your process is and exactly why you've chosen to settle on a specific phenotype for your reconstruction. And I'm more than happy to give you the floor to do that. But let me know if you want to do that. Let's exchange details, let's get this set up, and let's do it. We'll do it live, okay? Because I'm going to be obviously in this live stream today covering a few data points that I think you may have missed when you did your reconstruction. Feel free. I'm trying to think of the best way to get in contact with me. If I give you an email address, I don't want everyone to start spamming it. That's the only thing. You look. Feel free to. There's a time limit on this chat at the moment. Feel free to put your links in there. We're going to be revisiting a few of your links anyway in this live stream, but feel free to put them in there. Yeah, it's not. It doesn't allow links. Okay. We'll figure out how to make this work. We'll figure out how to make this work. I do want to have this discussion with you though. Let me know if you want to do that. We will do that. Absolutely. I would definitely like to do that. That would be great. So anyway, you're welcome that you're here. We're going to be critiquing your work. We're going to be critiquing your reconstruction. And yeah, so feel free to, pay attention Chime in whenever you feel like it. I'm not going to hold back just because you're here. If I'm going to be honest with you, share the name of the documentals. All are online, no problem. Yeah, please do that. Please do that. And we'll try and record them as we go along. So if I've got any mods online, try and just kind of copy and paste the stuff that Cicero puts in there so that I can, do this thing. But anyway, we're going to carry on with today's live stream. So you've come on and you've probably seen the title, They Can't Be Serious. You know what it's about. Okay, it's about this latest reconstruction that has been put out of Amenhotep III. And first of all, I'm going to make one thing quite clear, actually. The thing that I'm going to make quite clear, first of all, is that I think that a lot of there's been new reconstructions that have been put out. There was one of Tutankhamun that came out not too long ago. It was like last year, June. And there's been another one, and then there's this one. And I think that what you're seeing, I think in the kind of general Egyptological community and industry, is I feel like they are feeling the pressure. I do believe that these are responses. I do believe that the need to create these new visuals is particularly the one they did of Tutankhamun, which we're going to cover in tomorrow's live stream, which is why I'm not going to cover it today. It was a response because they know that the reconstructions that we've been putting out are much more credible. They're much more visually credible. They don't require so much mental gymnastics. They don't require all of this kind of like suspension of disbelief and total ignorance of Kemetic culture. I mean, there's so many things that I could lean on here that's wrong with this reconstruction. So many things, starting from the top and working my way down. And we're going to do some of that today. I mean, I could start off with the fact that even the way the Capresh sits on his head, as though it's some kind of, solid gold crown or something like that, or some kind of a solid cap. We know that the Capresh is related to hair that lay beneath it. It's one of the things that we discussed. Okay, this is a 18th dynasty crown. It was introduced by the Amarna lineage, and it's a crown based on a hairstyle that continued to be practiced right up until probably less than 60 years ago in Rwanda. Okay, and straight away this just kind of stares at me as something that has incompatibility with the person that sits beneath it. Okay, and this is something that many Egyptologists actually also agree on now as well, in terms of the patterning that lay on the surface of the Capresh gives you information about what style of hair would have lay beneath it. So that's just one of the things that's wrong with this reconstruction. But before we go into any of that, let's now dive in to some of these articles. Okay, so we're going to dive into some of these articles, and let's get that going. So just bear with me. So we'll start here. So because we know how this goes. Okay, a reconstruction gets released, and by the way, it's similar to when we did some work and we looked at the work that has been done by Carolyn Wilkinson. We've previously looked at work done by Elizabeth Danes or Darnes, and we know that in terms of these forensic facial reconstructions, I always mention this to my community, is that they are wholly dependent on reference data. Okay, so they're very, very dependent on reference data, and the reference data is dependent upon what is communicated to the reconstruction team in terms of the ethnicity of the person. Okay, they rely on anthropological tools. Now, to me, that works backwards slightly, and the reason that works backwards with me is because I've been studying craniometrics, not in a scholastic manner, but certainly for very, very, in a quite in-depth manner. I've been looking through thousands of skulls now, and there are anthropometric traits and craniometric traits that span ethnicities. There are craniometric traits that span certain ethnic groups. There are rates to certain traits, such as dolichocephaly, such as maxillar extension, such as your zygomatic projections, such as diastema, which is a gap that you get in your front teeth, such as overjet, which is the kind of slanting of the top teeth over the bottom teeth, and overbite. There are rates at which these traits are seen. Cephalic index is one we talk about a lot on this channel, whether someone's dolichocephalic, mesocephalic, or brachycephalic. These are all the different traits that can exist. So in my view, the person or the forensic facial artist should be informing the research somewhat on this. So they should be saying, based on these traits, I can see these kind of ethnicities or these kind of groups. We see this at this rate within this group, or we see this at this rate within this group. And what you'll find when it comes to these forensic facial reconstructions is that this doesn't happen. They're essentially given an ethnicity by oftentimes funders, sometimes anthropologists, who say, this is the ethnic group that you're going to be reconstructing. And obviously in modern times now, that's always going to be modern Egyptians. Okay. And modern Egyptians is a term, by the way, that's as broad as anything, because modern Egypt is one of the most ethnically diverse places you'll get. You get people as dark as me in modern Egypt, and you get people as light as Netanyahu. You know, you get people who are literally uber pale skinned, like this reconstruction. Okay, and you get people that are super dark skinned. But you'll find when they use modern Egypt as a reference, it's funny, they never seem to lean towards the dark or even the medium toned Egyptians. They always find the lightest ones. And also, to compound that, this is what's really important as well, to compound that, I've spoken with you guys quite extensively about the rate of skin bleaching in Egypt that takes place. Okay, I've spoken about that. That's something that's widely acknowledged. Okay, the highest, Egypt is one of the is almost like ground zero for what's that skin product that I was telling you guys about last year. It was what's it called? It's made by Olay. It's a skin bleach. It's a skin lightening cream. Fair and Lovely. Thank you. Fair and Lovely. I just trying to remember what it is. Fair and Lovely has its highest selling. That one of its literally places where it makes the most revenue is Egypt. So most modern Egyptians who even end up being this color are not naturally this color. Okay, they're this color by artifice. They're this color by a lifetime of bleaching from birth, and a lot of people aren't aware of this. Okay, there are two places where it's rife, and that will be India and the Middle East. These are the two places on the planet Earth where this kind of skin lightening from birth takes place. So even modern Egyptians, even the fair ones, a lot of them aren't naturally that fair, or that light, I should say. Okay, so it's funny, they always use modern Egypt as their kind of reference population, and they say, oh well, we settled on this complexion based on modern Egyptians, and then they pick I mean, I know a few modern Egyptians. I don't know any that are this light or have these features. So this is where it gets really bizarre to me as well, because I'm looking at this and this guy looks just straight up, Northern Turkish, I would say. He looks kind of like borderline Greek. I've met many Greeks who look like this. I don't think I've met many Egyptians with this feature set and these looks. And we haven't even touched on how far this reconstruction is from the consistent artwork of Amenhotep III. Amenhotep III has probably the most consistent portraiture amongst many of the 8th dynasty pharaohs. Very, very consistent. And we'll go through his portraiture, and we're going to at least try to understand why this was completely ignored. And many people are rightly saying no lips, you know, one of his greatest features, one of the greatest features of Amenhotep III is the fact that he had these clearly very big lips. It doesn't matter if you want to, how you want to spin it. There's not a single portrait you'll find of him that has thin lips. So why they would opt to do that? This is, and by the way, this is totally an opt-in. This is an option. This is a choice to make lips this thin. This is totally a choice to make lips this thin. Now, I'd be interested to know the decisions that leaned upon people, but this is once again reference data from a population. Okay, reference data, placing that reference upon a skull, coming with the output. But if the reference data is incorrect, then the final reconstruction is going to look nothing like. And by the way, there's no evidence, at least from ancient Kemet, to suggest that Amenhotep was obese. By the way, this is an invention of Egyptology. Once again, an invention, because I said this to you guys many years ago, and this is before this reconstruction came out, because someone else did a reconstruction of Amenhotep III. I think it was a French artist, but I don't think it was Elizabeth Dana. Did a reconstruction of Amenhotep III, like, that dates back a few. It's quite an old one. It was a painting, and they did him fat in that as well. And the only reason they do him fat is because he has a very full face, as in full nose, full lips. And for some reason, to Eurocentrists, that kind of, and I'm not calling the person who did this a Eurocentrist, but I'm saying in terms of a Eurocentric mindset, that's what translates. Well, it must be a fat white person. Okay. And I'll be honest, I know a lot of fat white people, they don't have big noses and big lips. I don't know where that comes. It's bizarre. It's bizarre, but he's not obese. He's got multiple statues. And I don't think that there's no reference in the Medunetta to him being a fat person. So if ancient Egyptians weren't actually scared at portraying themselves overweight, okay, Akhenaten did it quite often. He showed himself with incredibly big hips and a massive pot belly at times. There's several figures in ancient Kemet that would show themselves to be rotund, round. Amenhotep III is not one of them. He's clearly one of the most in shape. He had a great body, and we'll look at his artwork. Okay, he had a great body, and you could see it in his artwork, absolutely. But they insist on saying that he was overweight. So let's go through anyway. Let's start reading some of these articles, because I've been yammering on for a while now, and it'll be good for us to kind of like dive in, see what's been said here, see what we can hold on to, and see what needs to be critiqued seriously. Okay, so synopsis. Scientists have reconstructed the face of Amenhotep III, an ancient Egyptian king and one of history's wealthiest individuals. This is also a trope that I don't like as well. I have to state this. Okay, you'll find they tend to play out this trope of wealthy individuals when it comes to African rulers. Okay, I know that they're portraying him as a non-black person, but let's put that aside. It's still a trope that they're doing, they're applying, because he's an African ruler. He's a ruler of African nation. If this had been a ruler of a European nation, they wouldn't call him a wealthy individual. They say he ruled ancient Rome at its peak of prosperity. Or they'd say, he ruled ancient Greece and led them to, be in their most prosperous era. They'll use words like that. But when it comes to African rulers, it speaks about wealthy individuals. And to me, that kind of gives you the information, or gives you the viewpoint of them being despotic. It's very, very deliberate. And you'll find that this comes out more and more as we go through this article. This idea of him being a despot. I don't get any of that information when I do my research on Amenhotep III, that he was this kind of despotic ruler. But this is how they kind of put it forward, and it does really annoy me, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. But let me carry on. This achievement, based on data from his mummified skull, reveals him as obese, bald, and ailing. They've got that from his mummified skull. Okay, let's carry on. Brazilian designer. I mean, how could you know that someone was obese from a mummy? I'd love to know that. If you want to post your answer to that, Cicero, if you're here, love to hear your how you worked out he was obese for my mummy. Brazilian designer Cicero Moraes, who led the reconstruction, expressed satisfaction with the result, highlighting its historical significance and remarkable completeness. In a big discovery, scientists have reconstructed the visage of Amenhotep III, an ancient Egyptian monarch hailed as one of the wealthiest individuals in history. This feat marks the first time in over 3 millennia that the likeness of this ruler has been brought back to life. Well, no, not really. I did it last year. So maybe the second time we can say then. Actually, there's quite a few people who've done it online. To be honest with you, there's several reconstructions of Amenhotep III online, even from white reconstruction artists, and they always depict him as a black person. This is like the one pharaoh that even the really kind of conservative, very kind of like, you know, I'm going to make everyone either white or Arab reconstruction artists agree when it comes to Amenhotep III. We can't really spin this guy's statues into being a white person. He definitely was black. You know, this is the one that there seemed, before this was released, there seemed to be consensus about Amenhotep III. Okay, out of all of the pharaohs, we'll give him the black card. No, revoked. Now it's no, we're gonna take away those lips, take away everything that makes him him. We're gonna take away that good body, make him fat, take away those lips, make him thin, take away those big eyes, make them small, and we're gonna turn him, you know, this is like a reverse. It's like the Uno reverse card that's been pulled on this one. It's not a good look. Let me carry on. Amenhotep III, who reigned during the 14th century BC, ascended to power during Egypt's zenith, where he was revered as a living deity. Under his rule, the nation flourished, enjoyed unparalleled prosperity and global influence. See, that's a much better way to put it than to call him a wealthy individual. But I'm sure we're going to get more of that coming on soon. Regarded as one of the most illustrious pharaohs, Amenhotep III's legacy endures through an abundance of surviving statues, surpassing that of any other ruler of ancient Egypt. Let's read that again. Amenhotep III's legacy endures through an abundance of surviving statues. Now, forensic facial reconstruction artists do agree that having reference material, in terms of visual reference material, aids the process, you know, exponentially. And yet, for some reason, this reconstruction appears to have been approached as a blind study. They only seemed to reference him when it came to putting a caprese upon his head, and ignored all of the abundance of surviving statues. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Surely you'd take some reference. If you're like, especially if I'm hoping you've taken the process that I took, and that was to amass create a repository, a library of the different depictions of him. See if there's common phenotypic traits between them. See if there's kind of common tropes that run between the several artifacts, the several statues, so you can start to approximate and say, well, based upon the fact that I've got all of these and they all show this feature the same, let's assume that he had that feature. That seems to me like that would be a sensible thing to do. But when it comes to ancient Egyptian artwork, because of the visual Africanity of it, and because of the visual of the phenotype leaning towards modern African people, they prefer to write off all of the artwork together. It's totally useless. When it comes to a coin with Caesar's face, no, this is what Caesar looked like. It's indisputable. You know, they'll find a dusty mosaic, you know, of Alexander. This is Alexander the Great. This is without doubt. We've found the face of Alexander. It doesn't say his name. but he's in this. He's on a horse. He's on a horse, and he's going to war against the Persians. This face must be the face of Alexander. Ancient Egyptians leave 150 statues with the same face on it. Oh yeah, we don't need that. Don't know who that guy is. Who's that guy? Well, his cartouche says this. His cartouche says it's Amenhotep III. No, yeah, well, what do we need the statues for? He didn't look like that. It's just, it's just politics. There's no logic. There's no logic to the way they approach African history. It's very, very, very insulting. Thank you very much, Macy, for your donation. Unfortunately, the trend of ignoring evidence continues with African history. It absolutely does. And if they know that we're okay with ignoring the evidence, they'll then start to do stuff like this. What saddens me is even the possibility that people will start to look at this as an authoritative piece. Like, based on what? A scan of a skeleton. You've got to ignore all of his artworks based on a scan of a skeleton. You could plaster scene any kind of features on it based on the reference material that you use. Okay, that's just the way it goes. Okay, so this is where, I'll come on to you in a second, Black Rampage, but this is where I'm going to have to, I'll definitely have to get you online if this is you, okay? You say my argument about the statues not work in the case versus skulls. So this is where I don't think it's you, Cicero, speaking, because I don't think a forensic facial reconstruction artist would make such a ridiculous statement. Okay, first of all, let's not try and kid a kidder here. On this channel, we are quite well schooled in the process of forensic facial reconstruction. Okay, you could come up with 100 different faces using 100 different sets of reference data based on who or what ethnicity has been communicated to you regarding that skull that you're working with. Next, your approximation data is based on averages. Okay, it's not based on extremes. And so regardless of how close you really want to get, you're still only ever approximating an average. Okay, most of what makes a human face exactly what a human face is the fact that we have slight differences in terms of how our genetics express themselves through our phenotype. So you could have someone with very similar orthodontic region to another person, and one of them has really full lips and the other one has very mild lips, and they could both belong to the same reference group. Okay, this is not logic. So I'm now leaning on the fact that it's probably not you, because I don't think you would risk making such a stupid statement, or at least I'd like to see that qualified. If not, I'll be happy to ignore you from now on, because I don't think that you'd make such an error as to say your argument about statues. That's like saying we don't, as a forensic facial reconstruction artist, we don't rely on reference material. A photograph isn't going to help us if we have the skull. Get out of here. That's not even worth a response. That's not good stuff. You're not making yourself look good there. Debunk the junk. Absolutely will. Let's carry on. Anyway, so I'm going to carry on reading now. Thank you very much, by the way. I'm just going to skip over that. Black Rampage 2 for the $10. Macy for the $10. Really, really appreciate it. Let me carry on. So, utilizing data extracted from the mummified remains of Amenhotep III's skull, an international team of experts meticulously reconstructed his facial features. Okay, so let's boil this down here, because they like to kind of like dance around words. Utilizing data extracted from the mummified remains of Amenhotep III's skull. Okay. All right, so the data is the skull. Let's be clear on that. All right, because they've said utilizing data, and a lot of people will kind of like read that and go, oh, okay, well, they've utilized data. What have they done? Well, they extracted DNA, done this, that, and that, and the other measurements, anthropometrics. No, they haven't. They haven't done any of that. The data is a CT scan of his skull. Okay, they scanned his skull, so that's what we have. We have a scan of a skull. Okay, and they use the skull, the data that the skull has given them, to make a face, which is the biggest guesswork in the world, unless you're being given some kind of supporting reference material around it. Okay, but let's carry on. An international team of experts meticulously reconstructed his facial features, drawing upon contemporary anatomical data. Okay, so contemporary, that's what we talk about. That's the reference groups. Okay, your average tissue data depths, etc., etc., including the dimensions and the precision of the nose, ears, lips, sourced from living donors. The team painstakingly pieced together a faithful representation of the ancient king's countenance. The problem is they referenced the wrong ethnic group, as you can clearly see here, because they got something that looks nothing like, you know, you can do that all day long, but they've used the wrong ethnic group to produce it. Okay, let's carry on. Brazilian graphic designer Cicero Moraes, credited with breathing life into Amenhotep III's likeness, expressed his sentiments, stating, "If we are not mistaken, this is the first facial approximation of Amenhotep III. It is our gift to all those who appreciate history." Well, I did one last year, so not the first, but cool. Moraes further remarked on the remarkable completeness of the reconstruction, noting, "We were amazed with the final result, seeing a complete bust with these colours, and the facial serenity is quite satisfying." Amenhotep III's name, derived from the sun and air god Amun, underscores his divine associations. Renowned for his ambitious architecture projects spanning Egypt and Nubia, the monarch left an indelible mark on the landscape of ancient civilization. Now, this is where it starts to get, I mean, we've spoke about it already. Described as obese by who? And they mention a doctor here, and I was trying to find a reference and where he got this data from, because I know this is a load of nonsense. Described as obese, alien, and largely sedentary, Amenhotep III's physical stature stood in stark contrast to his towering wealth. Now, I do know he was short, and that's fine, because we have that data. We've had that for a long time. However, the idea of him being ailing, obese, and largely sedentary, I haven't seen that supported anywhere, other than the imagination of Egyptologists. I haven't seen that anywhere. I would love to get a reference point to say, okay, cool, it's said here, you know, in Amenhotep's book or something like that, he was a lazy fat king who did nothing and fell apart. But I haven't read that anywhere. So, you know, Amenhotep III was an obese, sick and sedentary man who was almost bald and suffered from dental problems, the expert said. Well, first of all, they're almost bald. You know, let's not bald shame here. This is a bit harsh, isn't it? Not everyone has the solid hairlines, all right? You know, could almost take that personally, all right? It just sounds like you're trying to badmouth the dude here, you know? what wasn't he? Now, this is the doctor where that quote apparently came from, okay? Dr. Michael Habicht, an archaeologist in Flinders University in Australia, remarked on the king's opulence, speculating that he may have been entirely adorned in gold leaf, resembling a deity in human form. Now, I'm not sure where he got that as well. I would love to get some more information about that as well, because I tried to find a reference for that as well, as in where they got this idea that he covered himself in gold, because I haven't seen that anywhere. And it would be nice if that was a supported piece of data, because I don't know, I'm not going to hate on it. It sounds like an interesting, a strange thing to do, but I'd like to get a reference on that as well. Despite his diminutive stature, standing approximately 156 centimeters, that's around 5'1", Amenhotep III's wealth, and actually him standing at that height of 5'1", actually makes his the one I did, not this one here, it actually makes him it makes him make a lot more sense. Because one of the things that I noted about Amenhotep III, and I was actually always very weary of replicating when I did the reconstructions from his statues, is that he does have really large eyes. And I know like a lot of pharaohs have relatively large eyes. Some do, some don't. But he has really large eyes, and they're really consistent. And I was always like, oh, these look a bit weird. But in my mind, he was a taller person. But if you make his stature smaller, the large eyes suddenly they make a bit more sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it does make a bit more sense. So I'm kind of like, oh, it kind of makes sense. If he was that short, that would kind of contribute to the reason why he had, you know, perhaps larger than average eyes, if he already had large eyes, that is. So that's quite interesting to know. Anyway, Amenhotep III's wealth and influence eclipsed that of many of his contemporaries. Dr. Habrick mused, he might well have been one of the richest men that ever lived, at least in his epoch. The monarch's reign came to an end about 40 or 50, so that's not too bad for balding. Okay, let's not, once again, be easy on the guy. Marking the conclusion of an era that witnessed the pinnacle of ancient Egypt's grandeur. In shedding light on the enigmatic face of Amenhotep III, scientists offer a captivating glimpse into the distant past, unraveling the mysteries of one of history's most illustrious figures. Sounds like that was written in ChatGPT, if I'm going to be totally honest. Okay, so there's the end of that article. Now, we're going to move on, and we'll cover quite a few milestones. Okay, we're going to cover quite a few milestones in this live stream. But the first thing we're going to do is, I think at that point, let's do a comparison. Okay, I think it's quite important that we get a bit of a comparison going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up these reconstructions in full so you guys can see all of them, because it's really important that we get a full feel for, no, that's one thing, it's important that we get a full feel for exactly what is going on here. So just bear with me. I'm going to, if I can, so I'm just trying to find something. Here we go. I'm just going to pull up the images. I can't find. Where's it gone? Is this article? It might be this article. I want the one that gives me scroll through. Some of these websites are horrible. Just like throwing ads at you. Okay, here we go. Let me just quickly click on, no, not there. Sorry guys, just bear with me. I'm just trying to find the there's one article, I thought I had it open, that has all of the reconstructions. Okay, no worries. I'm going to just pull up a new window and hopefully I'll be able to get it going. Bear with me, guys. Oh, once again. My PC's lagging a bit again. Okay, cool. So yes, this is what I wanted to show you. So I wanted to kind of show you the reconstruction from different angles. Okay, let's visually see what's going on with this. In fact, this one will be a good one. Let's just get it on one screen. So I'm going to open link in new tab so we can zoom in. No, I want to open image in new tab. There we go. I just want one that I can zoom in so you guys get a good feel for this reconstruction. Okay, so you get a good idea of what. Now, just so we're really clear on this reconstruction, because I think that's quite important. Just look at the feature set. Okay, I appreciate the fact they've done him probably at the age of 40 to 50, which is when he was supposed to have passed away. So that's probably the only thing I'm okay with. Let's first of all just address everything, okay? Because this is quite important. First of all, what is this big tent that he's wearing? Okay, I understand it's a facial reconstruction, and I understand that that's fine, but these are some of the tricks that they use to associate Kemetic culture with something that it wasn't. Okay, the usek they have put around his neck, I'm not gonna hate on that. It looks absolutely fine. Okay, definitely consistent. But this big white tent he's just got kind of like draped and hanging, and the way it's draped without any shape, this, I haven't seen this done in Kemetic artwork before. Okay, now maybe they're doing that to hide the fact that they've insistent on saying that this man was overweight, even though we don't have any evidence to suggest that he was overweight. Now, just looking at the reconstruction from the various angles, so looking at the side view, which I think is really important for us to see, he has when I say this guy has got reverse lips, okay, he's got no lip projection whatsoever. And you guys obviously know what an Amenhotep III looks like, but we'll have a little bit of a digest going through Amenhotep III's statues, because as you saw, and it was made quite plainly in the article, he was, you know, a fairly vain brother in that he had loads of statues of himself made up. And I showed in my reconstruction, I believe, that, yeah, his statues all look like the same person. Nothing about these lips is the same. Now, we also have this very peculiar thing that's done as well, and we're going to go into it in terms of the way they position the skull within the reconstruction, which has always been a bit of a beef of mine, because they tend to kind of twist it and turn it and ignore dolichocephaly, which I find really, really irritating. They do that quite a lot, and they kind of put all this, what they do is they place all this fat around the back of the head to kind of almost like mentally trick you into thinking that their head shape wasn't, you know, they didn't possess that, you know, that very famous ancient Egyptian bean head. And they have all of these little tricks that are done, and I call them tricks because none of this, in my opinion, is done with intellectual honesty. None of this is being done with intellectual honesty. Because if this was an ancient Greek ruler, you better believe they'd be pulling up the statues. If this was an ancient Roman ruler, they'd be pulling up the statues. They wouldn't be doing blind reconstructions, taking sample data from, you know, the middle of Africa, and then saying, oh, well, look, this is what they look like, forget the statues. They wouldn't be doing any of that. This is really kind of like the height, in my opinion, of intellectual dishonesty. It's very dishonest. So let's have a quick comparison, okay? Because I think that'll probably be the most basic and obvious thing for us to do right now. So I'm just going to pull up Amenhotep III's actual depictions side by side, and you tell me if there's a degree of consistency that you see in these. Okay, you tell me. All right, so here's one. This one's in the Louvre. Okay, is there any element of this that is consistent with that in your view? Let's carry on. It's the same image again in the Louvre. How about this one of a young Amenhotep III? Why can't I zoom out? Okay, I've got to make this window a bit smaller. Oh, annoying. Sorry, guys. You know I'm not good at this two window thing. There we go. Okay. So here's a young Amenhotep III. Are we noticing a key theme here that might have been missed out? The features that, you know, I'm not going to say too much here, but I know people that look like that. Okay, I know people that look like that. Let's carry on. Oh, is my thing freezing? Why is it all zoomed out like that? That's really annoying. There we go. I don't know what's going on. It's being really, really draggy and buggy today. There's another one. This one's a bit rubbed out. Let's carry on. How about this one? Now, I just want you to just really have a look at the top lip on this one. Okay, I want you to really have a look at that top lip. That is very deliberate. Okay, this is not an accidental top lip. Okay, this is not an accidental top lip that they've produced here. Okay, top lip being heavier and thicker than the bottom lip in this regard is also another very, very good idea that you're probably looking at someone of African/black descent. Okay, there is nothing in common between these two lips. Let's carry on. These are three, not one, guys, not one, three portraits of Amenhotep III. Now, one could easily argue, oh, well, you know, if it was one, maybe he didn't look like that. But these are three portraits taken at three different times, okay, depicting exactly the same face. So, I mean, we know this isn't a 3D statue, but once again, they've still had the time to painstakingly give us the same features. And when I say the same features, I want everyone to look at that nose. I'm going to go back. I'm going to zoom in. Look at that nose. Yeah, look at the shape of that nose. I'm going to go back. I'm going to zoom in. Look at the shape of that nose. Okay, all three, the same nose. Okay, and then I'm going to scroll back to the statue that we looked at first of all. And tell me, does that look like the same nose to you? Because it does to me. It looks like exactly the same nose. Exactly the same nose. So somehow these different artists using different mediums seem to be really good at showing the different features in the showing the same features regardless. Charles, thank you very much for your donation. And you said they're king. They've actually created a reconstruction that looks more like Zahi Hawass than Amenhotep III. And I would wholeheartedly agree with you. Sorry, I'm just trying to get on the screen. There we go. I'd wholeheartedly agree with you. This doesn't look, I mean, it's almost insulting, almost beyond insulting. Let's carry on. Next, we have this portrait of Amenhotep. Now, guys, this is Amenhotep and Queen T, his wife. If you looked, once again, same nose, by the way, guys, somehow miraculously, probably a different portrait artist has managed to depict the same nose, the same eyes, very consistent. Lips look really big on this one, but guys, if you looked like this, if this is how you rolled out of bed in the morning, okay, looking like this fella here, and you asked to get your portrait taken for some kind of reason, okay, to be placed in, I don't know, it was going to be placed in a temple or something, you're trying to preserve yourself for posterity. And the reconstruction, or sorry, the artist comes in and he says, "Sire, your portrait is ready, sire." And he brought this in, yeah? And you look like this. Would that be an off with your head moment? I mean, they like to claim that the Egyptians love to do the off with your head thing. but clearly they hated. I mean, if Amenhotep III did look like this, he had the biggest black fetish in the history of mankind. I mean, he was that is your that is your A class, I wish I was black kind of fella. Because why would you look like this and have hundreds of portraits created and none of them look like you? And I do state hundreds. They all look like some black fella that he met and he thought, oh, I wish I looked like him. Make all my portraits look like him. This is ridiculous. This is absolute. I mean, I can't state strong enough how ridiculous this is. Why would they put this out to the public? Why would this not be vetted and checked? Why would the reconstruction artist, if that really is the reconstruction artist Cicero in my chat, although I doubt it is, but why would the reconstruction artist not question the source material? Not say, can we have some statues and some portraits of the guy so we know what we're working towards? This is crazy. Let's carry on. I mean, do I have to say much more than this? I mean, if you look at that and you don't see the eyes, you don't see the face of a typical African like we have seen in all of his portraits, I don't know what to say, but I don't mean this when I say a typical African, by the way. Let's carry on. There he is again. Consistent face. The nose is missing on this one. Once again, we have those precisely the same lips. Why would this all be totally ignored? This is bizarre. And this is Amenhotep III and Queen T. Let me just quickly, sorry, it's doing that weird freezy thing at the moment. It's trying to die on me. Stop trying to die on me. Okay, I'm going to close it down. It's being really annoying. Sorry. Is it going to let me open it? No. Yeah, it's been really annoying. There we go. Amenhotep III and Queen T. Yeah, my PC is moving super sus. What is going on? I haven't got that much open at the moment. It's moving really slow. Sorry, bear with me, guys. Figure out why it's doing this. It's normally Google Chrome yamming resources for no reason. I think I'll just close this window down. This might be the guilty one. Let's try again. It is not having it. Let's try again. Alright, if my image view has died, it's fine because we could take a break. Sorry. There we go. Almost thought I lost it there. Amenhotep III and his wife, Queen T. Okay. I mean, I think my image view is acting a bit sus at the moment, so I'm going to close it down because there's actually other things that I want to cover today anyway. So we've done a bit of an image digest, and I think that was a good place for us to start. So we now have it in the back of our minds what Amenhotep III looks like in terms of depictions. Okay, I've got loads more, by the way, that I could have showed you, but my PC's dying a bit. But I now want to tackle some of the anthropology, okay, that they don't like to cover. some of the anthropology, and this is really important because the argument being made here is we have the skull and the skull is giving us information. My response is, okay, so if you're taking the skull and apparently, allegedly, you're getting data from the skull that suggests that the guy looked like this and was a part of this ethnic group, but although I know for a fact you have not inferred ethnic group from the skull, you were given that data. I know that for a fact. But let's give you the benefit of the doubt now and actually say you weren't given the ethnic data. You know, this is something that was calculated yourself. By the way, sorry, quick thank you to Jonathan, who left a donation. He said, and the nose, which we can see the lips and the nose are well off. But yeah, so going back to the point I was making was, let's say you did use the craniometric data to assume their ethnicity, which we know for a fact they didn't, and we'll actually look at an article in a second proving that they didn't. Let's jump on that now and let's see how far they went with the craniometrics. Is there anything else that we can infer from their craniometrics? Well, there is. Okay, let's have a look at this paper. Okay, let's close this window. So this paper is called The Physical Proportions and Living Stature of New Kingdom Pharaohs. Okay, this study was done in 1983 by Professor Gay Robbins. All right, now this article deals with the physical proportions and the statures of pharaohs, and this is a topic I talk about quite often. And just to give you an overview, is that yes, race is a social construct, a very recent social construct, and I'm not arguing here now that there's should be any differences between races. However, there are clear physical differences between the people who have been assigned the label black, who have been given the label black, and the people who have assigned themselves the label white. And it goes beyond complexion. There are distinct bodily proportion differences, and I speak about this quite a lot. I speak about the fact that people of African descent have longer distal segments, that is your arms, the tibia, that's your kind of the lower part of your leg where your calf is. Okay, so your tibia, your arms, shoulder span, in proportion to their proximal segments, that's the segments closer to the center. So you'll find that we have a shorter torso than a comparative European of the same height. We have longer tibias, that's your calf area, than a comparative European of the same height. We have longer arms. That's why if you have two boxers that are the same height, one's white and one's black, the black one, I would say 9 times out of 10, but it's more 99, probably 999 times out of 1,000 will have a reach advantage. That's almost a given. Two fighters of the same height, one white, one black, the black one will always have a reach advantage. Okay, and this has been the case for a very long time. So even if you go back to time in ancient Egypt, it's still the same case that you've got these physical proportional differences. It could be linked to Neanderthal admixture. I'm not here giving a reason why it's been called a tropical adaptation, although I don't think it should be called an adaptation, because African is the home of Homo sapiens sapien. So I think everything outside of Africa should be classified as an adaptation, as opposed to Africans being classified as the adaptation. But either which way, let's call it a tropical adaptation in Africa and call it a cold adaptation in Europe. But there are clear physical differences, and that's acknowledged on this paper. In fact, the physical disparity is so large, okay, that essentially what you have is you have different formula you use. And the reason why this was done, by the way, it wasn't just to do some wild racial science. They had to do this because when they exhume the body of an ancient Egyptian mummy and it's incomplete, they need to be able to approximate. So listen to the science here, guys. Yeah, they need to be able to approximate the length of the bones. Okay, so there's missing bones. They need to be able to approximate the length of the bones. So they have to create some kind of a formula to say, well, this bone is missing. How long was this bone? And where did it sit? And they can only do that if they have some kind of formulae, some kind of qualifying formula that they can apply. And they found that when they had people of European descent and people of African descent, the differences were so distinct, they were given much different readings. Okay, so in other words, let's say they found a femur bone, which is your thigh bone. They found a femur bone of an ancient Egyptian. They want to work out, but the tibia is missing. They want to work out the length of the tibia. They have two equations they can apply. They can apply, and this is quote unquote, the quote unquote Negro equation, or they can apply the quote unquote white or European equation. And what they found is that with not one, not some, but with all of the dynastic mummies, let me say this again, not one, not some, but all of the dynastic mummies, their segments, their bodily bone structures would only work with Negro equations. Okay, only work with Negro equations. Now, I don't bring this study up kind of whimsically, I bring up this study because it's very relevant, because Amenhotep III is a part of this study. So without going into massive amounts of depth, I can just kind of take you to the good parts that are, or the part that's relevant, the part that you're going to be most interested in. Okay, and that's this table over here. Okay, this is the table over here. Now, this line over here is your line of best fit, so to speak, when it comes to the Negro equation or the African bodily segments. Okay, and this line over here is the European or the Eurasian bodily segments. Okay, and you can see there's a huge gulf. It's not like there's a gradation between these two. There's a huge gulf in terms of difference, and this paper acknowledges outright that all of the ancient Egyptians are either Negroid or super Negroid in terms of their limb proportions. Their limb proportions fall thoroughly in the realm of Black Africa. So if you looked at the body, you're looking at the body of a Black African person. Now, just to be very, very clear, Amenhotep III, okay, he's on this as A3 over here, and you can see he falls pretty much dead center on the line of the Negro equation. So if you're going to take his craniometrics and make assumptions about his race, when you have his entire body and the rest of his body could give you a very, very clear indication of which racial group he falls into, why would you ignore the measurements that you're being given in terms of his body and then say, well, we can infer his race from his skull alone? Well, his skull might be saying one thing, but the body is saying black. The body is clearly saying black, and that's by a huge gap. And this might sound slightly presumptuous, but looking at the reconstruction that was done by Mr. Moraes, this would definitely be someone who would be falling not into the black segmentation but into the Eurasian segmentation. This would be your typical longer torsoed, shorter armed, shorter legged European. You can tell even just by looking at the face what kind of body you're going to be dealing with here. So it's the one thing that you're going to sit there and claim, oh, meticulous work. Well, it wasn't very meticulous if you completely ignored the fact that we've already got bodily measurements on Amenhotep III, and they place him firmly within the realm of black Africans. And this is not something you can just ignore or you can spin, okay? This is bodily proportions, okay? You can't ignore that. It's bodily proportions. This is something that we clearly exhibit, okay? I know as a black person I have longer arms than a white person who's of the same height as me. That's just a fact. You know, I know I've got longer, skinnier calves. That's just something that we grow up with. Okay? We know what our physical differences are. Okay? And it's more than just the surface of our skin. There are, like people like to say, there are adaptive differences on an ancestral level in terms of what the environment our ancestors grew up in. And these studies, or this study at least, tells us quite clearly that Amenhotep III's environment or the ancestry is a black one. It's not white. He's not over here. Okay? So you can't just create that data or use that skull as an excuse to make that reconstruction that is so far. So now we've got two pieces of data. We've got his reconstructions that clearly look like black Africans. We've got this study on anthropometrics that clearly state that he had black African limb proportions. Should we keep going? Let's keep going, see if there's anything else. Let's look at this study that looks at DNA. Okay, in this study, those of you who know me, you know that I'm not a massive fan of assigning race to markers, to single uniparental markers, and I don't do that, and I won't be doing that here. The only reason I give credence and time to this study is because this is a full autosomal study, and it uses STR profiling. And what STR profiling does is it takes your entire genome, and based on your entire genome, it says which group you're most likely to cluster in. Okay, so it's a probability factor. So nothing here is being said with certainty, but bear in mind this is the only type of DNA analysis that's permissible in court. Okay, so this is the only one that will pass court. No, you can take your haplotype SNP, your haplotype SNP markers and say, a court will throw that out because they know that they're so random and so common. It doesn't make any sense to base any kind of like legal judgment on them. However, STR profiling is permissible in court. It's permissible for not for ancestry. It's permissible for parentage, okay, and it's permissible for ethnic grouping, placing people within groups. It can be done quite well with STR profiling. Now, the reason I've pulled up this study is because once again we have some relevance because we have a sample done that includes Amenhotep III. So this was done using data that was drawn by actually Hawass in 2010, which was done to find the relationships between the Amarna lineage. So essentially this was done a big DNA study that was done in 2010. Hawass has written his own paper on it, but he didn't look at this element. But what a lot of independent researchers did is they took that data and they worked out the probability based on based on these STR markers, which is short tandem repeaters. It basically gives you a genetic signature. So based on the genetic signatures of these various characters, it told you which group they most likely would sit within in terms of modern day people. So in comparison to modern day genetics, if this person existed now, what would be the probability that they would fit in a certain group? That's what these tests tell us. So this is the one that was done by Jourdain in 2018, and we can just trace along here Amenhotep III here, okay, and here's his results here. So I'm just going to quickly zoom in. One second, let me just draw around. Oh, let me zoom in so you can all see this. Okay, cool. Oh, I don't know, our PC's struggling, it's so annoying. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to scroll here. This is Amenhotep III's line over here. Okay, so here's your three sets of data in regards to who he clusters with. So we have SSA, which is classified as sub-Saharan African. Those of you who know me know that I hate that term. Like really hate that term. But let's just say it's sub-Saharan African, or continental African it should say, as opposed to sub-Saharan. But anyway, let's just say black African. 93.7% match probability. Now, I know that might sound like, okay, no, it's not 100%, is it? No one gets 100%. Even if you take the test today, you wouldn't get 100% match probability with that. Okay? 93.7% says that he's almost certain to be a black African. Bear in mind that you only need an 80% match to have certainty in a court of law that someone is your offspring. So if someone has kind of like a 80% affinity to you, that's permissible in as parentage in a court of law. So if he has 93.7% black African, or, you know, affinity with modern black Africans, the consensus in terms of his DNA, his autosomal DNA, is that he's a black African. Only a 6% affinity or chance of him being a Eurasian, and basically just over a 0% chance of him being Asian. So all of those of you saying, oh, Asian eyes, he's got Chinese eyes, well, you don't have Chinese DNA. Okay, so 94% affinity with modern black Africans. The gulf between these two areas is humongous. So even if you was to argue, or was to present or push the argument that he was mixed, or he was some kind of, you know, yeah, he might have been mixed, but it would have been mixed one form of African with another form of African, according to his autosomal DNA. It's very unlikely that he has much, if any, Eurasian admixture. So now we have DNA supporting, we have limb proportions supporting, we have portraits supporting the fact that he looked like it. I mean, the fact that we have to argue that he probably looked like his statues seems a mite ridiculous to me, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. Seems a little bit ridiculous. This is actually Cicero's paper, and I actually had this preloaded because I wanted to have some time to go through this, but I just had confirmation from someone I trust implicitly, who told me that that definitely is Cicero in the chat. So I'm going to try and organize the live discussion with him. I think it's important that we do that. So I'm going to try and organize that. Let's see if we can basically get some of his details, please, Cicero, if you're happy to, and we can discuss this online, because I'd be happy for you to have the floor to be able to defend the decisions you've made, because you're hopefully seeing some of the reasons that I'm not buying into your, you know, your reconstruction. But I'm going to carry on. Because I've only just started. Let's carry on. There's one more that I wanted to look into. So this is once again the same DNA results, but run by a different researcher. Okay, this is done in 2012 by a company called DNA Tribes, and I'm just going to, is it going to let me? Okay, cool. So I'm just going to open up full screen. All right, fab. And will it let me zoom? Bear with me. No, that's not working. Okay, here it is. So I have to do this. Move that on. Okay, cool. We got a zoom. We got a zoom, guys. Okay, cool. So let's go back a page. Sorry, these online articles are a pain. And let's look at the table once again. So DNA Tribes, in terms of the way that they published their data, it's slightly different. But I'm just going to explain to you how this works. Okay. So once again, we got the same characters: Thuya, Yuya, KV35, elderly lady, KV35, younger lady, which I know that Cicero was a part of another team who did that as well, but we'll come on to that, and KV55. I've got a problem with all of their reconstructions, I've got to be frank with you. But this one over here, Amenhotep III, which is the one that he done once again. So let's have a look. So once again, this is MLI. This is matching, sorry. So this is, oh my goodness, what's happened there? Sorry. There we go. So MLI is your matching index, okay? So it's your matching likelihood index, okay? For different parts of the world, and basically they've kind of like partitioned the world into these different groups. So they're relatively large groups. So when it says Southern Africa, Great Lakes, really what we're speaking about there is basically all of East Africa, essentially, up to the Horn. So up to basically the top of the Great Lakes region is the Horn, okay, of Africa, and the bottom is South Africa. Southern Africa is basically South Africa, including Zimbabwe. Then we have tropical West Africa, which is kind of like the entirety of the Sahel, just below the Sahel region, the kind of region of Guinea, and some of the Congo as well. So that's kind of been grouped together. And then we have Horn of Africa, and then we have the Sahel region, Levant, and so on. Okay, so you've got the different regions of Africa there. So none of them have been left out. All right. Amenhotep III. Now this number over here basically tells you how likely they are to match this region in comparison to the rest of the world. Okay, so just to be clear, this is a comparison to the rest of the world. So for instance, let's just start really easy, going with Thuya over here. Thuya was 359 times more likely to be Southern African than in comparison to the rest of the world. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. But she was also 2 times more likely to be North African in comparison to the rest of the world. However, 359 times more likely to be Southern African is, 150 times more likely to be Southern African than North African. Does that kind of make sense? So I'm just kind of trying to give you the way the maths works here. So if we go across to Amenhotep III, he is 100 times more likely to be Southern African and 222 times more likely to be specifically Great Lakes region African than he is anywhere else in the rest of the world. He's 38 times more likely to be tropical West African. Now, if you compare that to where they're getting their current data from, which is, I would have to say, North Africa, which seems a bit unfair because Egypt and North Africa have very different ancestry. But anyway, we're not going to go into that. Modern Egypt we're talking about. So modern North Africans is only 3 times more likely to be a modern North African than he is anywhere else in the rest of the world. But if you compare that with Africa of the Great Lakes region, we're talking about 80 times more likely to be a Great Lakes African than a modern North African. 80 times more likely. Once again, these numbers are off the charts. So really, we're seeing a heavy skew. And this is all the kind of like most of the Armana lineage. A massive heavy skew towards basically continental Africa. Massive heavy skew on terms of their likelihood to be continental Africans in comparison to being modern North Africans, Mesopotamians. Why do they ignore these studies? Why do they ignore these? Why do you think they ignore these studies? They ignore them because it doesn't give them the data that they want. They prefer to try and find stray uniparental markers that they can create their own stories with, rather than look at the entire genome and do a comparison based on modern populations of what their genetics looks like on a whole or on an autosomal basis. Why would they ignore this data? It's there. There's a reason they haven't run this. Do you understand? There's a reason they're not clamoring to do STR profiling on modern. Every time they pull up these mummies, they're always trying to get the mitochondrial, the mtDNA, by the way. They don't even like the Y-DNA because the Y-DNA keeps pulling up black African ancestry. So they keep doing the mitochondrial DNA. And they keep hoping to get something that they can tie a story to, that they can create some kind of fiction around. If you wanted to prove which kind of like ethnic group the ancient Egyptians most closely relate to, and I'm not sitting here saying the ancient Egyptians were Rwandan. I'm saying that the DNA suggests that if you was to pluck an ancient Egyptian out, or Amenhotep III in this case, this is the group he genetically will be most closely tied to. That's what it says. That's what the data says. Okay? You can take it any which way you like it. But that's what the data suggests. And anybody, by the way, Anybody can run this STR profiling because the data was published in 2010. The reason they don't keep running it is because it's going to keep giving you back the same answers. The answers aren't going to change. This Amarna lineage are going to continue to be returned as being genetically a match for modern Africans. Okay, so this isn't about, once again, it's not about ancestry. It's about simple the fact that genetically these guys are the same as these guys. That's what this is telling us. That's significant, because that should tell us everything we need to know about phenotype as well. Macy, thank you for donation. She said, we are the only group of people having to prove our history in regions where we're the indigenous people. Absolutely. It's somewhat frustrating, but it's kind of sad how we've gotten used to the fact that we have to do all of this to, you know, I'm sitting here proving or having to prove that Amenhotep III most likely looked like his statues. You know, it feels somewhat contrived. You know, it doesn't feel like something I should need to do. But then, you know, all due respect, I didn't expect to see a reconstruction like that in 2024. And I didn't expect people to feed back to me saying, you know, all due respect, the skull doesn't match, doesn't give us doesn't match the skull doesn't match the statues and doesn't give us the, did you try to create that's the question I have, because that's what I'll be doing, because I saw what was created. By the way, just to be clear, I saw what was created by, in fact, I'm going to pull up the article. Let's go back into the article, because I do want to touch on some of the stuff that he's been involved in. Sorry, just bear with me. I was here somewhere. Was it here? No. Where's the article? It wasn't this one. Was it this one? No, that's not it. This is not it. Sorry guys, bear with me, because I wanted to pull on some of the reconstructions that were done, because KV55 is another one that I've revisited myself and came to a very different conclusion as to the one they came with, and I'd love to discuss some of those phenotypic traits that were ignored and why they tilted his skull downwards to make it appear as though he wasn't dolichocephalic. Because that actually really irritated me, if I'm going to be totally honest with you, and I'd love to discuss that. Where is it? I might have accidentally closed it. Let me go back. I feel like it was here. No, it wasn't. Ah, annoyed. Very annoyed with myself. I had an article up that, or maybe it was PDF. Yes, here it is. Okay, cool. This is what I wanted to touch on. Sorry, guys. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so this article covers demonstration for a protocol of computer-aided forensic facial reconstruction with free software and photogrammetry. And this walks through his process, and this isn't the one. We'll touch on this in a separate live stream. We'll tackle this, but it's basically the same process, but he uses software to get his results. But it's basically the same process that is done by Carolyn Wilkinson. If I'm going to be totally honest with you, I think Carolyn Wilkinson's one is a bit more thorough than this one, but this one is still, there's still a process there that I'd like to take you through, but that wasn't it. I wanted to show you there's an article where he actually shows you the kind of work and reconstructions he's actually done recently, and one of the ones they did was a reconstruction of KV55, and what they done with the skull of KV55 what's, once again, I thought very deceptive. It really rubbed me up the wrong way. And if I could find the link to it, I'd pull it up. You know what, I'll save that, because I have a feeling that me and Cicero will be doing a live stream together soon, and he'll be able to, I want to give him the floor to refute everything that I'm saying, because I certainly will be trying to refute many of the claims that he's made on his side. But let's go back, because I want to just quickly show you. So I don't know if many of you guys will remember this, the KV55 overlay, and I was suggesting that KV55 actually does have a good degree of resemblance to Akhenaten based on the positioning of the physical phenotype. Because when I overlaid the skull of KV55 with a profile that matches the profile of Akhenaten, it was a perfect fit in terms of everything, in terms of features. But then that worked really well with the reconstruction of Akhenaten as well, particularly the length of the chin, which is a really unique feature that Akhenaten has. He has a very long chin. We already know about his full lips. We have overjetting of the teeth. Now, the reason I'm mentioning all of this, I'm not going to go into all of this in too much detail, but the reason I mention all of this is I've spoken to you guys about the fact that this is the way the skull should face. And you can see when the skull faces this way, we have substantial subnasal prognathism. Okay? This is the way the skull should orient. However, when they do the reconstructions, they tilt the front downwards. So if you see, when I pull up their reconstruction, I'll show you it soon. They pull the front downwards so that the brow basically goes in line with the front of the teeth. So you can imagine they just kind of rotate it in this direction. They rotate it anti-clockwise if you're looking at this one. So it's facing downwards, and then they build the skull, or build the reconstruction around a skull that's facing in the wrong direction, and they'll complete the reconstruction. And no one will question them for this. And what that does is it reduces the length of the head. So you have a skull that is very visibly and obviously dolichocephalic, ending up being not dolichocephalic because you're measuring from here to here as opposed to here to here. You have the subnasal prognathism all hidden. Okay, so what you had before as a kind of a jutting out of the lower jaw, now all of a sudden looks like a very flat or even receding jawline. They do these things, and it's very deceptive, and they put this out in the public. And I find it incredibly frustrating, because I know for a fact that these qualified people know better. I know for a fact that they are happy to put out this kind of deception. And that's what I find really, really annoying, and yeah, it would be good if they're happy to kind of like answer for themselves in some of these areas. I would actually love to have that discussion with them. Okay, let's carry on, because I think we were midway through looking at portraits of Amenhotep III to see how he portrayed himself. I think that this is a worthwhile exercise, so let's just do it. Let's just look at a few more of these images of himself. Then I think what we'll do is we'll close off looking at the reconstruction I created. And I think for part 2, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to spend some time working with the scan of the skull and seeing if there is any phenotypic continuity between the skull of Amenhotep, if it's been scanned correctly, that is. Because I was actually really suspicious, because actually when I looked at the skull that had been scanned, it had no signs of overjet. Now overjet is what I showed you in that last, have I closed it? In that KV55, and that's basically a very African trait where our teeth kind of slant forward. Okay, they don't go straight down. Most Africans, I'm not gonna say all, by the way, because there's nothing that's all in Africa, but many Africans, particularly on the Nile Valley region, have a slight slanting forward of their top teeth. It's a very natural slant, but that's called overjet, and it's something that we hide behind our very voluptuous lips. If you're going to compare us to the rest of the world's population, we have larger lips on average. Okay, and that often hides overjet. And if I was to look at Amenhotep III, my guess, looking at his portrait here, is that he'd have slight overjet, but I didn't see any in the scan of the skull they did. So I don't know if it's I'm hoping it's a very accurate scan. I'm not going to make any presumptions that any kind of anything nefarious has gone on there. I'm pretty sure the team that done it were professional and they scanned it properly. But I'll be doing comparisons and seeing if I can create anything around the skull, and then we can bring that to discussion, because I would love to, like I said, have that discussion with Cicero regarding his work. Like I said, I think it's very brave for him to come on here now that, you know, one of my admin team has confirmed that it's him. I would like to, you know, obviously commend him for coming onto the live stream. I would like to invite him back again, and definitely do it in an environment where we can discuss this in a fair debate, which I think is really important, that people have the opportunity to do that. But anyway, let me carry on. We're going through these images. Amenhotep III, again, looking so consistent, even in stele artwork. Same nose, same lips. Once again, if this isn't the same person, why do we have this consistent depiction of them in terms of their physical features? Why would it be so consistent? Amenhotep III, again, this one's in the British Museum, I believe. I believe this is a younger one, but once again, it's the same face. I think we've seen that Amenhotep and Queen T. We've seen that one. This beautiful statue that's in the Louvre. This wonderful statue that I used quite heavily for my reconstruction. Consistency of features once again. Same nose, same lips. Thank you, Cicero. He said, thank you, King. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Cicero. I appreciate you coming on here. And hopefully you can understand and appreciate where we're coming from as a community. It's really important that we're represented correctly. So it'll be a pleasure to have a proper conversation with you. We have this colossal bust. And another colossal bust. This one's in the British Museum. Same features. And once again, he has that thing where, once again, top lip just ever so slightly larger than bottom lip. You can kind of see it just kind of overhanging the bottom. This is why I had suspicions that he would have overjet, because that's normally kind of a telltale sign when you have the slightly larger lip than the bottom lip, that you're hiding some kind of overjet. This is why I was leaning towards that. This one also is in the British Museum. Okay, an older Amenhotep III. And once again, I still lean on this. I've said this to you guys from the start. In fact, if you go back to when I did my reconstruction of Amenhotep III, I said they are hell-bent on insisting that this person is overweight, because that's their way of explaining away the African features. That's absolutely what I 100% believe, because I haven't seen any data to support this. And even the statues that he has going back show someone who is in incredible shape. Yeah. And once again, the Egyptians, I haven't seen the case where, you know, many of them would show folds and all kinds of physical imperfections. In fact, more so than any other society, you're very likely to see statues of kind of fat, out of shape Egyptians, and they were cool with that. They were absolutely cool with that. So if he was out of shape, then he would have depicted himself out of shape. But he didn't. He depicted himself consistently with the same phenotype and pretty decent shape for what I can see in most of his depictions. Okay, I'm freezing up again there. It's so annoying. Was that my... No, it wasn't. I think I was near the end there. This one also is in the Louvre. I love this one. If it opens up, Yeah, this one's also in the Louvre, a young Amenhotep III. So let's now actually just do a quick comparison with some of the reconstructions that I've done. Now, obviously, you know that my reconstructions were done purely based on the artwork, okay, not based on the skeleton. However, I think I will definitely enjoy and relish the opportunity to see if there's any overlap or overlay continuity. I've enjoyed massive success doing that, by the way, particularly if you look at my most recent short with King Tutankhamun, where my reconstructions were based on his artwork, and my reconstructions transcend every single piece of artwork he has and perfectly overlay both frontal and profile view with his skeleton. Every feature matched in exactly the same place. So this is one of the reasons why I'm biased towards believing that the artwork will get you to the right place. I had the same kind of success with my reconstruction of Queen T and others that I can't think of at the moment. They tend to overlay really, really well with the mummies and with the skeletons, okay, which means you could create the same face on that same skeleton and you could honor the features that you can see on the statues, which is what is never done. But I haven't done that yet, so I will obviously put my hand up to that. That's not been done yet with my Amenhotep III, but I definitely will try and get that done now within the next week, so that by the time I have my discussion with Cicero, I'm armed with a few more data points. But anyway, let's pull up my reconstructions, and I think we'll close out with this as well, because we've got a good crowd, 382. Thank you guys for joining, by the way. It's a real pleasure to have so many people online. I've really missed everyone, by the way. I haven't been online for ages, it feels like. Just to kind of give a bit of an overview whilst I'm pulling this stuff up, I've been working really long on a documentary, actually, and some of this data overlaps with the data that I'm going to be releasing on the documentary. It's about King Tutankhamun, so you've noticed I've been releasing a few bits and bobs like community posts and shorts about Tutankhamun kind of back to back, and that's because I'm working on this larger, longer documentary that's going to be kind of like a really thorough digest that kind of overviews everything we know about him and discusses if we know enough about him to really assert who he was. You know, who was he culturally, who did he fit in with, what did he look like, which I think is probably the easiest question to answer. But I tackle all of that in this documentary, this forthcoming documentary that I'm working on. But it's, like everything, taken a really long time. So I'm just trying to keep the stream busy every now and then by doing a community post and doing a short, because they're a little bit less demanding. But I am working on something. Tomorrow I'll be doing another live stream again, which is why I don't want this one to go on too late. I'm going to wrap this one up really soon. But I'll do another live stream. We'll be tackling the Tutankhamun reconstruction that was done last year, kind of covering the same kind of data points that we're covering today. So we are going to be tackling these. All right, let me pull up now my reconstruction of Amenhotep and hopefully provide some inspiration. Who knows, eh? Okay, so let's start off with and bear in mind, you guys know when it comes to my reconstructions, I will create one and then I'll expect that one to carry through. Okay, so I should be able to make very slight adjustments of age, and I expect it to carry through on the rest of the portraiture. So there should be that kind of continuity. All right, so let's have a look. So this is kind of my reconstruction overlaid. Okay, overlaid, and then there's my reconstruction of Amenhotep III. Okay, so once again you can see it overlaid, and then you can see it by itself. Okay. Feature wise, this is kind of where I feel it sat quite well. let's get some other versions up so we can just see how. So I want you to have a look at this one over here, and then I'm just gonna, in fact, let me scroll across a couple because I want to give you a nice comparison, and I want to show you how this one keeps making it crash. That's so annoying. It's like the ghost one. It keeps making it crash. Sorry guys, give me a sec. Let me just. Sorry. So for each of them, I do want to quickly do a comparison so you guys have got something to look at it alongside. Okay, so let's start again. So will it load? Has it loaded? No. Why aren't you loading? Stop being a pain. My PC is dying slowly. Close these. This is crazy, man. Sorry guys. Let me close these tabs and see if that helps. I swear it's OBS, it just doesn't. Yeah, and I think my Windows is closed. It's crashed. Let's try again. Try again, please. Open now. This time. This is a pain. I think my Windows picture viewer is just passed out. It's just not having it. It's not having any of it. This is so annoying. Timing is perfect, isn't it? I think my PC is just tired. Okay, now there you go. Now it's back. I don't know what it was that I was having it like that. Okay, let's see if I can get it. Let me see if I can get it back. Get it back. Thank you for your patience, guys. Sorry about this. Don't worry, I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so Jenny, at the third, comps. Okay, cool. So, yes, finally. Thank you, guys. Sorry about that. Those of you who come to my live streams will be used to that. Okay. So there you have, well, there you go. In terms of, these are obviously stylized with different hairstyles, so you can see them in comparison, okay, to the feature set that I've tried to honor. Cicero, thank you for coming on, my friend. You've been really polite and you haven't been rude about it at all. So I'm really, really open to have a discussion with you. I'll email you. And yeah, appreciate you, man. Have a fantastic evening, and we'll get in contact with you. Take care, mate. So in terms of this reconstruction, you can see that same face once again, but you can see how it complements the artwork, regardless of which artwork you pull up. And that's literally kind of what I try to make the tale, i.e., if it suddenly doesn't fit or sit with a portrait that exists, then there's something wrong with either the process, there's something wrong with the portraiture, something isn't sitting right, okay? But for each one, there should be a degree of continuity, okay? Would you say there's, bear in mind that this nose has been preserved, but would you say there's continuity between this and this? Would you say there's continuity? I would say there's continuity between this and this, and there's no reason why that can't be the case. A lot of what we think is possible, or what Egyptologists think is possible, and even what professionals who kind of enter the field with, who aren't, who don't harbor those thought processes, they're still entering a field that is based on racism, and they don't realize the root of all of these ideas, the reason why people are being classified, clustered, and placed outside of the African continent, or outside of Black Africa. They don't realize that it's racist systems, it's roots that are based in, 19th century, right at the peak of, racial indiscretion, So this is the reason why a lot of people miss these things. So I should be able to scroll through the different examples of Amenhotep, and there should be continuity. Okay, there should be continuity. There shouldn't be a sudden leap where it suddenly doesn't look like him. So I try to do a few different versions so we can, appreciate the fact that we're dealing with the same person. Let's carry on. I'm going to actually let this side dictate. So this one here, I figured he's a bit younger. So I did a few age-adjusted downwards ones just so we can get an appreciation for perhaps what he looked like when he was younger. And once again, I feel like I got a good degree of continuity there. Okay. And this one actually works particularly well with the one that showed, it crashed again. It's this one image. It's really weird. It's got like an image that just crashes it every time. Let me see if we can pull it up. This one. That's so annoying. So I figured out what's crashing my PC. It's that image. I'm going to delete it. I don't know why a JPEG image would cause such problems, but it seems to be. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. All right, cool. Let me just quickly scroll through a few of these and hope for my PC to kind of jump back to life. In fact, let me just close this and see if that works. This is crazy. Okay, that seems to have done the job. Will it open? No, it's not opening. I give up. Okay, cool. Let's just have a look at my... Hopefully you guys have remembered in your head. Oh no, it's just crashed completely. Oh, you're such a pain. Please stop. Okay, we're back. I've deleted that image now that caused all the crashing. But yeah, I wanted to do a quick comparison between these two. I hadn't really had an opportunity to really adjust this one. All I did was take the older reconstruction and age adjust it. I would like to kind of like do a few further slight adjustments to it, but even with just the age adjustment, it's really close. I feel like it's really close to this one. Not quite there, not quite spot on. It's kind of sitting between this one and the other one that I showed you that's in the British Museum, but it's quite close. And that's really what I look for. I just look for enough for people to kind of be able to say, oh yeah, that looks like the same person. Now, obviously, I think the final and probably a really important step is to see the continuity between this and the skull. So I'm going to do that work, I think, between now and, well, probably starting from tomorrow, because I'll email Cicero. I'll see if I can organize a date, because I think it would be really good to have him on the show, because he doesn't sound like he's by any means a bad person or trying to derail anything. Some people really do enter these things with best intentions, and they have no idea the agendas that are at play. So yeah, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and see where that discussion goes, because I think we could have a good one and maybe even do some real positive influencing if that is necessary. But yeah, so I want to see if there's any other kind of spins of the reconstruction that I want to show you before I wrap up for the day, because I don't want to go on for too long. We've had nearly 2 hours now, and I think that's long enough for today's live stream, especially considering we got one tomorrow. Yeah. Let me see if there's any. Let's get the one with the... I just want to get the one with the Capresh open. Sorry, the Nemes open, and I think there was a statue with him with the Nemus. An older one. Oh, it's this one, but it's got a few bits missing. Actually, I've never compared it to this statue. Let me see if this works. Even here we go. Here's the one that I was looking for. This one here. So we got this one with the Nemes, and yeah, this one here. So once again, this is missing a few pieces like the chin and the ears and stuff. But I think facially, would we say we got some good continuity going on there? Look at what I really love about this one here. I've seen this one in person in the Louvre Museum, and I just love the projection of his face. Can you see that kind of angling forward of his face? That's such a, I don't know, I love it. I loved capturing this. No, yeah, it does it. I think people have agreed it's not spot on, and I agree with that. Someone just said the eyes are a little bit too sunken. This is something that I've actually learned recently. Actually, the kind of projection of the eyes right onto the surface is a really, really regional trait. I know a whole bunch of Nubians who have that feature. It's so cool to see on the ground and see it. And I've always got a few family members who have it, but just to kind of see it in person. And I did spend a lot of time just kind of matching features in terms of size, but not always matching them in terms of projection. I'm getting better and better at that. So this is one of the reasons why you'll see my newer reconstructions tend to make massive improvements on the older ones. But I still think there's a good degree of continuity between, you know, the features here and here. Still a bit of work to do. But anyway, that being said, we are done. Okay, it's now about to hit 11 o'clock. Okay, and I really have had a great time. Yeah, I've had a really, really great time with you guys. Unexpected visit from Cicero was actually very much appreciated. I think it would need organization, but I definitely want to get him on the live. That would be absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much for all of you who donated, as always, and thank you for everyone for being active on the comments, my fantastic moderators and everyone else just kind of like leaving their support and their feedback. We do on this channel have one of the best live communities. I'm telling you that right now. There are other channels that are bigger than mine. I'll put my hand up. There's lots of channels out there that are bigger than this channel, but when it comes to our live streams, we have the very best live stream and the very best live stream community. I'm telling you right now, I look forward to being live with you guys so much, and when I don't see you, I go into slight withdrawals, so I have to think of topics that I can go live with. Thank you very much. Someone said good forensics, shine the light. I appreciate that. I actually only covered a fraction of what I wanted to cover today, but it always gets like that because once we get into it, there was so much I wanted to read with you, but there was so much contextualization and back reading that's required. I always think I'm gonna need more, so I think it's better we cover less and we take a bit more time with each one. I think we've done that today. We've covered just probably enough information to be covered in a single live stream, but I think we can part two this one. I think we can definitely part two, or what I might do is tomorrow's live stream I might just use it as a continuation, because essentially we're covering the same topics. We're still dealing with, you know, reconstructions that, you know, are very unsatisfactory. if we're gonna speak in euphemisms, you know, really unsatisfactory reconstructions that we don't like. So we'll carry on challenging them and bringing them to task and seeing what we think is missing, and actually using whatever's been done to bolster the strength of what we do. Because like I said, I would be quite confident now. I know I've said this, but I'd be quite confident now to take my reconstruction of King Tut, for instance, and take it to any reconstruction artist, because I've spent so much time with that one and I've attacked it from every viewpoint. I've looked at pretty much every single piece of artwork. I've got to the point where I've convinced myself that's exactly what King Tutankhamun must look like now. I'm like that confident. So I'll take it to any reconstruction artist and say, well, tell me why your one's more accurate. Because one of the things actually I didn't even touch on was the fact that today's live stream, we looked at the artwork, we looked at genetics, we looked at limb proportions. I also had another study that we could have looked at on skull shape, and I had another study that I could have looked at where we were going to look at skin complexion as well, because there's a whole few paragraphs in the there's a whole few paragraphs in that actual, when they posted this new reconstruction, where they talked about, oh well, like they always do, we approximated the skin complexion from the from the Egyptian population, and we gave it a type 4. We didn't want to be too, the irony is they said, oh, we didn't want to be controlled, because it was actually the person who decided the skin complexion is a doctor called Dr. Michael the one that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned one of his quotes earlier, and he said, quote, we didn't want to be, racist like the other Egyptologists or whatever, or the people previously, so we went for a type 4. So they actually thought they weren't being racist choosing that skin complexion, which I find really ironic. So I was like, you think you're not being racist because you haven't made him pink? Is that what you think? You think you're not being racist because you haven't made him pink? That's literally what they're saying. Oh, we haven't made him white, we've made him like, he's like a fair coloured Turk. It's like, mate, have you been to Egypt? I already spoke about the skin bleaching. If you don't know about these things, first of all, most Egyptians, particularly the ones who live in Egypt, are very brown. Okay, they're very brown. The ones that aren't brown are bleaching. Okay, or of recent European ancestry, or both. Okay, so you haven't even made him an average modern Egyptian colour. You've made him far lighter than your average modern Egyptian, and you think you're not being racist by choosing this type 4 skin complexion. Now, there is a study that I've already posted, and ironically it's done on nobles from exactly the same region that Amenhotep III was, because the Amarna family were from Thebes, weren't they? They were Theban. And actually the study done where they did the melanin dosage testing, Dr. Anna Marie Makota, was done on Theban nobles. Oh, look at that. Theban nobles, and I believe they were Theban nobles of the New Kingdom. So they've done studies, and they've already said that their skin complexion came back negroid. Now, it wasn't done, they haven't done melanin dosage testing specifically on Amenhotep III, but they did do it on other people in Thebes. So that could have given you the data that you needed to approximate a Theban complexion, if that's what you want to go for. And they came back, quote unquote, negroid. Okay, that's how they came back. So on every single vertical where they could have done approximation for pretty much anyone in terms of pharaonic New Kingdom, but particularly for Amenhotep III, there's no level, there's no piece of anthropology that isn't going to return back to you a black person, and yet they chose a really, really, really pale-skinned Arab. That's not intellectual honesty. So yeah, we could have tackled that, but we didn't. It's a bit late, and I'm not going to go into that now. Skulls on Negro too, absolutely, they are. Thank you very Jonathan Waters for the donation. He said that's a lie, they tell themselves. Yeah, I think you must be talking to when I said about them thinking that they've not been racist by not making them pink. It's like, no mate, you're not doing anyone any favors there, none whatsoever. Zodia, thank you as well for your $20 donation. He said thanks for being you. Thank you for being you. I appreciate every donation I receive and your support. It makes these live streams. Yeah, thank you. All of those ancient people were tropically adapted and very dark skin. A lot of them are just mixed with Arabs and other Caucasian groups in North Africa now. We know that it's been invaded a lot up there. There's been a lot of mixing over the last few hundred years. It's a very interesting topic. Yeah, so I think I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for the parting gifts, guys. It is after 11 now. I promise we weren't going to go on too late. So please feel free to carry on chatting for a bit, but I'm going to close the live stream down now. I thank you once again, everybody who's been online today. We've had a really good crowd. Have a fantastic evening, and if you can make it, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.